Microsoft said that they are leaving their observer seat on OpenAI's board. So back when there was the whole debacle of Sam Altman essentially getting kicked out of the company, and there was a lot of uncertainty, Microsoft, who owns a massive share, about half of the company, was quite concerned for obvious reasons. This was a big investment for them. They'd previously put in, I believe, like $13 billion into OpenAI, and they want to make sure that this company is going to be around. So after this whole debacle, they got an observer seat, which was a non-voting seat, so they could sit on the board. They don't have a vote, but they can watch what's essentially going on. They now said that they're leaving the company. They said that they've seen enough to essentially have confidence that OpenAI is going to be going in a good direction. But what's interesting is with this news, OpenAI has also said that they're not going to be bringing on any more observer seats, which there was a whole kind of rumor a little bit earlier that Apple was going to be able to get one of these observer seats because of, I guess, their close integration of getting ChatGPT on the iPhone. So it seems like this is not actually going to be the case. That leak was not correct. And this is what they specifically said. They said, we're grateful to Microsoft for voicing confidence in the board and the directors of the company, and we look forward to continuing our successful partnership. Under the leadership of CFO Sarah Fryer, we are establishing a new approach to informing and engaging key strategic partners such as Microsoft and Apple, and investors such as Thrive Capital and Coastal Ventures. So they're obviously keeping people updated in the loop, but it felt a little bit like they were being babysat to have like an observer, like we have to be able to sit on your board and see what's actually going on. I hope that this kind of signals the board that Microsoft essentially has confidence in OpenAI. They got things figured out. They don't have all this board drama that's going to kick out their CEO and ruin this big investment anymore. And so I think this is kind of what they're signaling, but it is interesting that Apple's not going to get one. And they essentially said they're going to come up with another way to share information. So it just feels a little bit less babysat and more they're just updating their investors in a normal way. So I think this is very interesting. What's interesting to me here specifically is I kind of wonder like what level Microsoft. Here's the thing. Microsoft, there's no acquisitions that can happen in the current regulatory environment. Big companies aren't able to acquire companies. Now, Microsoft has 49% of OpenAI, so it's kind of like they acquired them. I mean, not quite. They don't have 100%. They don't have, 50%, but 49% is a huge share of the company. So they obviously have a big interest and obviously a big say in what OpenAI is doing. Now, with all that being said, there's also recent news a couple days ago that OpenAI is really cracking down on China, users in China, and banning essentially the use of Microsoft's or essentially of OpenAI's API in China. So what I think is really interesting right now is we have Microsoft saying, look, we're not going to ban people from using OpenAI on our Azure platform in China. And they've done a bunch of like legal loopholes to do this. Like, so they have all of their data centers are set up in all their data centers are set up outside of China. And the reason for this, the reason this gets a little bit complex is because China says nobody can essentially, no one can have an LLM, a large language model inside of China without government approval of all of the training stuff that goes into this. And there's a lot of rules if you accidentally have some stuff in there that shouldn't be. So Microsoft has went through a bunch of loopholes. They have a joint venture with a local company, which is called 21 ViaNet, which offers Azure's open AI service in China. And so also 3 different Azure China customers confirmed that they still have access to these models. Okay, why am I bringing this all up? Because it seems like there's a bit of a convergence and a difference right now between Microsoft and OpenAI on some of these like bigger regulatory, business plays. And I wonder if Microsoft pulling off the observer board is their way of of distancing themselves from OpenAI. So Microsoft recently said, kind of in relation to all this China stuff, they're like, look, OpenAI is a completely separate company than us. They could do whatever they want. OpenAI said, look, we're ramping up, cracking down on access from Chinese people having access to our API. They've always said that they don't support it, but a lot of people in China essentially have a VPN, virtual private network, that allows them to say they're in a different country and kind of use OpenAI's GPT, ChatGPT, and embed it into their software and tools. Now, OpenAI seems to be cracking down on this more, so I don't know if this is a very good long-term play. And Microsoft, when they, OpenAI announced this, Microsoft said, look, we're not pulling our OpenAI chat GPT functionality out of Azure in China, so you still could use it there. And so there's kind of this like convergence of like who's doing what, and Microsoft's like, look, they're their own company, they can do whatever they want, we don't care. I wonder if the pulling off of the board is just kind of like their way of like really distancing themselves from this decision and any other decisions. Like, we're not colluding with them, don't worry. It feels like Microsoft kind of wants to stay on the Chinese government's good graces, and OpenAI wants to stay on the American government's good graces, because it's just who's gonna cause them the most pain, right? So at this point, Microsoft is so big, they're probably worried about losing the China market, where OpenAI is kind of on the up and up, but they're still getting pulled in front of Congress. They're seen as not a monopoly, but like they're dominating the AI market. And so they know as AI is getting regulated, they're going to be a top, kind of a top person that's getting the number one company that's going to get looked at. So I do think this is interesting from both sides. These business decisions seem sort of political, but like they're both of these companies in their self-interest, I think, trying not to get regulated. And in Microsoft's case, they feel like China would be a bigger, uh, threat to their bottom line. And in OpenAI's case, they feel like the US government right now and their regulations are probably a bigger threat. And they don't want to be seen as someone that's like supporting China getting ahead in AI or something. So anyways, I think this is very interesting. With all of this being said, though, I think the real outcome of this specific case is that we're going to see more and more of, developers in China really ramping up, maybe using other companies or using their own internal companies and coming up with new competitors and using them. Hard to beat OpenAI and ChatGPT. It really is the greatest that I've used so far. And so obviously China probably doesn't have something quite as good, I would assume. And I've tested out a couple of things, homegrown ones out of China so far. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens here. But definitely this is, I think, an interesting place where all of these big companies, and we're going to see it, we see it with Apple as well, with kind of iPhone and iPhone production and things. But all these big companies, they have this dance to play where there's the US regulators, there's the Chinese government, and the Chinese market, because that's obviously a ton of users. And they got to try to play this dance so that they don't get caught in the crosshairs of trade wars and other geopolitical tension that is happening. Now, I'm not saying who's right, I'm not saying who's wrong. This is just the facts. This is what's happening and my analysis on why I think it's happening. If you enjoyed the episode today, I would love it if you could leave a review for the podcast. Show us some love over on YouTube. Check out the AI Chat channel over on YouTube, just past 100,000 subscribers. I would love for you to be one. And I hope that you all have an amazing rest of your day.